Hello and welcome back to another collection video. We're going to jump straight into it. We have a lot of PS2 games to get through. I think it's 95 or 96 depending on how you want to classify some of the big box versions that we've got, multi-disc things. But let's get straight into it. We won't spend a huge amount of time on every game. Some games we will barely touch on. Other games will go slightly more in depth and give a tiny mini review. But we don't want this video to be too big. So format here, we will try and get the box art over here. Occasionally some gameplay on the left. Not always gonna be possible because there's just way too many games and I can't be playing 95 games just to get this video out to you, but we will play some good ones. Probably this one here, Time Splitters, the original Time Splitters, made in part by some of the team that worked on the GoldenEye and Perfect Dark games. There are some similarities and you can see the advancement from that engine and those games into this one. All-time classic for the early days of PlayStation 2 gaming. Free Radical, the developer there. And the next one we're going to talk about is actually, I've got two here to try and save a little bit of time. Devil May Cry 1 and 2. We may well get to other games in the series, in the franchise as we move on, but these games are in no order. I will preface the video by saying that, so apologies if that is the case. Again, all-time classic. What a franchise for the PS2. Never really moved on. I know there was a couple of different remakes and they tried to reinvigorate the series, but the PS2, these were the classic games from the era. A few of these games I won't have a huge amount of say because a few of them I haven't really played that much of, if at all. Crisis Zone here being one of them. This was more, I went through a big phase of loving light gun shooters, and this is definitely one you can have on your light gun. Unfortunately, today's TVs, it makes it a lot trickier to play those light gun games, but it has that... It's Namco, so it has that reminiscent feeling of Time Crisis as well. Alright, another classic here. Platinum Edition box, Crazy Taxi. Most well known on the Dreamcast and the arcades. This was, again, an all-time classic. A few bonus modes in this version, I believe, and obviously that amazing soundtrack. Sticking with the somewhat arcadey racing games, Crash Nitro Kart. Again, great game, not as good as the PlayStation 1 classic CTR Racing. I'm not sure who actually developed this one, but it wasn't, of course, Vendetta. Of course not the original creators of Crash Team Racing, sadly there. But still a good game, just kind of got a bit sidetracked with some of their features. Bit of an interesting one here, Contra Shattered Soldier. I can't even say that very easily. I haven't played this one a huge amount. I got this one later on in life, and I think it's kind of more of a 3D. And actually, looking at the box art here, it does look like it's a 2.5D with that reminiscent Contra feel, but I've not heard many people talk about it. Maybe it's one that I will play just to see how well it holds up, actually. Looks like it could be quite interesting. Capcom Fighting Jam, actually a really cool little fighting game here. It's kind of had really weird graphics, if I recall, and not being sort of completely reminiscent to Street Fighters, and it had some Darkstalkers fighters in it as well, so it's a bit of a mesh-up. They did that with quite a few different franchises. Wow, I can't believe I got this one for 50p here in the UK. Incredibly cheap. Fur Fighters, Vigo's Revenge. Didn't play it a huge amount. I think it was like one of those party type fighter beat 'em up games, a bit like Power Stone. And Freedom Fighters here, again, another all-time classic from the makers of Hitman, as it says up there, IO Studios, or Interactive, I believe they're called. A really good game. In fact, I can't tell you how many times I've played this game, and I've kind of just done the first couple of missions, the first little intro section. I must have done that a dozen times and just never actually played the whole game all the way through. It's a little bit finicky with some of the controls, and I think the inversion on the aiming's a bit annoying. Can't be changed in this version. But it's definitely one I actually always want to go back to. I just never make it that far. A fairly rubbish game here, Final Fight Streetwise. It kind of was trying to be an advancement into that 3D universe, but it just didn't really do it. I think the dialogue and the story was pretty crappy. Sounds like it's got a bit of a good soundtrack. However, the gameplay itself was very limited, lackluster, and very buggy. We've got a lot of all-time classics here. Final Fantasy X, first game coming out on the PlayStation 2 since the trio of amazing games on the PlayStation, and some remakes as well. This game still regarded very highly today, and for good reason. It is one of the best RPGs, JRPGs you can get. Quick little movie tie-in here, Finding Nemo. Nothing to say on this one. Don't know if it's any good, but I'm sure my daughter probably played it back in the day. This one's quite interesting. Again, one I can't remember playing. Bomberman Hardball. Looks pretty cool from the title screen. We've got tennis, baseball here, and golf. So a little, and the classic mode, as you can see on the back. A little variety game here, which actually sounds quite interesting. I'm surprised no one's ever mentioned this before. I assume the sports modes were not that well received and not that good, but it could be. Okay, the next one here, I was trying to wait till I had all the 007 games out to talk about them through individually. However, the other ones I've seen are deep down in the list here. So we're going to talk about this one, From Russia With Love. It was actually a really good game, fairly well received. I'm just not entirely sure why I think the EA license ran out and they couldn't make many more games. Although that's not true, because they did make a couple more after this, I think, possibly. I don't know, but this is a third-person over-the-top retelling of the classic movie, and it is really good. Again, loads of classics on the PlayStation 2, you already know this. Beyond Good and Evil, one of the best games on the system. Been remade, kind of, not really remade actually, but more updated. What's that word? Ported, I suppose, with HD graphics. Remastered, if you like. Anyway, really good game, action adventure. Take pictures of the creatures as you go around trying to expose this conspiracy and defend the planet from your oppressors and the invading aliens. 50-cent Bulletproof, a bit of a game that was kind of thrown aside at the time of release, but in hindsight is actually really interesting, really good action. It doesn't take itself too seriously. A shooter, of course, cool soundtrack if you're into that sort of thing, but just an over-the-top action adventure shoot 'em up. Very good and worth playing. Rugby Challenge 06, pretty fun if you're into your sports and into rugby. This is a decent little game, nothing too compelling, but we'll tide you over for a few matches. Resident Evil series, we finally make it to. We've got a Resident Evil Outbreak and Outbreak File 2. Very good games, but kind of ahead of their time almost. They were almost exclusive. You could play them single player, but almost exclusively online, doing different little case scenarios as you played as different people trying to get through your given case, relying on a co-op experience. It was interesting. I think if it came out these days, it would actually be way more popular, especially if they nailed that gritty horror atmosphere with the visuals. So yeah, I'd still recommend having a quick look at these if you can. I believe you can play them online if you use emulation as well. Speaking of Resident Evil, here's again another classic, of course. Resident Evil 4, been remade now countless times. I can't even tell you how many. One of the best games on the system, and some people would say of all time. I've got to throw in here a little funny case, Urban Chaos Riot Response. A sequel, but made by a different studio and doesn't follow the original PlayStation 1 game. Urban Chaos Riot Response is actually a really good game. I don't know why I've got this special disc, but essentially you're a police officer going down, captivating criminals in an interesting way. I'll try and put some gameplay on the screen for this one because it is actually quite good. Still to this day, the best NFL licensed game of all time, ESPN 2K5. If you don't really care about sports, you're probably not going to care about this. But if you do like football and you've never played this game, it is as good as all the hype. A little bit slow now and still very much animation based, but very much more fluid and very much more realistic than your Madden counterparts. Second Sight here, a game by Free Radical, who made the Time Crisis series, the Splinter Cell series, Splinter Cell Time Splitter series. Very interesting horror adventure type. What is the right word for this? I don't know. Psycho Adventure, I don't know. It's a cool game though, definitely give it a try. Escape from Monkey Island, following on from the other older Monkey Island games, very similar in terms of story driven. Your choices around different puzzles get you through the story, and this one was in a more 3D atmosphere, still had all that great comedy, and a really good game. Driver, Parallel Lines, don't know too much about this one. Obviously, Driver 3 kind of killed the franchise, but I believe this game came out after it, as did a few other games in the franchise. Not entirely sure if this is a very good game or not. I assume probably not that great, but reasonable enough if you're into your cop-type driving experiences. Now, 3 games I will quickly gloss over because they are children's games. My daughter would have played these, especially this one. I remember seeing the box art now. Dora the Explorer Saves the Mermaids, Journey to the Purple Planet, and also actually Monsters Inc. Scare Island. Not particularly good game, but out of those 3, this is the one that you would probably want to play with your children. It follows the story to some level of the movie. I seem to remember there's a PlayStation 1 game as well, which is somewhat similar but different. Alright, Dino-Stalker is a very unknown game. Again, it's one of those light gun type experiences that would be hard to play these days, but worth doing if you can. As you can see, is essentially Jurassic Park, the arcade game where you go through and shoot a load of dinosaurs. Pretty good. Bit of a weird one here. Disney Golf, I actually went through a little phase where I was going to go on holiday abroad and buy different games. So I believe I got this one in Italy, actually, funnily enough. Never really played it too much. It's a bit like Mario Golf, but with Disney characters, and, you know, it is what you would expect. I haven't ever seen this one, actually, in the UK. Oh, one more game for kids. Strawberry Shortcake, Sweet Dreams. Can't really remember this one, but again, if you've got kids, they may like it. 1/3 of the way through. Okay, Jak 2. I'm sure I probably got another Jak and Daxter game at least in here, but maybe not. Jak 2 is very much action-adventure game that you would expect in this franchise, in this series of games. I can't really remember too much about this one, to be honest with you. Eco, or Ico, depending on how you want to say it, an all-time classic. Kind of a successor to the Shadow of the Colossus, which we may well talk about a bit later. I think this one's a little bit more lacking in terms of the art direction. It's really cool, but it isn't quite as cool. Still good though, and very popular. I believe it did get that remake, that HD remake, not too long ago as well. So worth playing, or at least having in your collection, I think, just from an artistic point of view. Another double header here, State of Emergency 1 and 2. Not the best games. Most people picked the original up because it was Rockstar, not too long after the Grand Theft Auto 3 game came out. And it wasn't really that good, to be honest. It's okay. Basically going around in different little environments, whether it be a mall or outside on the streets or whatever, just shooting loads of people, basically, and trying to get a high score almost a bit Tony Hawk-esque. The second game, I think, had a bit more story, and it was kind of trying to take you down a bit more of a traditional path. And I think it's actually probably a bit of a better game, but not many people talk about them. Speaking of Tony Hawk's, we've got number 4 here, one of the best games of all time. I really loved this. It was the last game before they then went on to do your non-numbered games, and things got a little bit too wacky and a little bit too crazy for my liking. Just your traditional, amazing skateboard arcade experience. Love this game. Another classic, as I keep saying here, The Warriors Rockstar game. It's using that same engine that people are familiar with Bully and GTA of the era. This game follows the movie almost word for word in terms of scene for scene anyway, the story beat to story beat. And if you like the film, you may not know the film because it's quite a cult classic. You go around as a gang in the kind of 1970s New York, and you're framed for killing one of the higher ups of the gang scene, and you're framed for killing him, and all the other gangs are after you as you try and get back to your hideout. A really good game, really recommend it. We'll go again with another double header with these. We've got Smackdown Shut Your Mouth and Just Bring It, or Just Bring It and Shut Your Mouth, as the games came out in that order. Again, if you're into your sports games, if you're into your wrestling games, these are two of the best you can get on the system, and maybe of all time, actually. Fantastic, fun action, really fast paced, not too serious, but enough detail to keep you coming back and keep you playing it. Here we go, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. So as I said, they moved away from the numbers and went on to the naming conventions. This one, I think, was the first one, but I can't really remember the order they all came out. It's still fun, it's still good, but it's just not as straightforward as those numbered games was. And we already spoken about the first game. Here is the sequel, Time Splitters 2. Still an amazing game. I think they sort of started to lose their way a little bit. I don't know, the original game seemed fast-paced and arcade atmosphere almost, and this one tried to go down a more story-driven route and a more traditional first-person shooter type vibe. And I think I preferred the arcade element to it, to be honest with you. Can't remember this game at all. Realm of the Dead, or Realm of the Dead, I should probably call it by its correct name. Can't remember what this plays like or what you do in it. It looks kind of cool actually from the screenshots, but that's kind of the point of a box, is to make the games look cool. No idea if this is good. It says you get 3 characters with individual combat styles and 20 different levels, so could be good, could be really bad. I'm assuming really bad, to be honest with you. And here's one of the games where it's a triple pack. Rayman, you've got the M, which is the multiplayer party type game, Revolution, which I don't recall too well, and your traditional number 3 there, which is one of the better third person. Actually, they're stacked on top of each other. I thought I was missing discs there because I was expecting a floppy thing in the middle. But yeah, 3 is obviously the best game here. It's worth buying just to get number 3, to be honest with you. Oh, Revolution is Rayman 2 Revolution, so I guess like an update on Rayman 2. So actually, pretty good triple pack to have Rayman 2 and 3 and the multiplayer game, which, you know, it is what it is. Another franchise originator here, Platinum Edition of Ratchet and Clank. I really like these games. They are pretty fun. Insamic, that made them, did a really good job of sort of moving from PlayStation 1, although they never had a PlayStation 1 Ratchet and Clank game. They kind of, you could feel like you're playing on next gen type software and hardware here with this game. It felt much bigger than what you were used to playing in these platforming 3D action adventure games, and a lot more smoother, and a lot more different sort of detail and objectives. Really good game. Psyops, the Mindgate Conspiracy. I don't know much about this. It's again another game that I've tried to play quite a few times. I just can't really get past the first intro. The camera just doesn't feel that good. I think it's got a lot of like fun, interesting things, a bit like Second Sight that we spoke about earlier. It's all about like mind play, using special abilities as you go through this tragic story, but I've just never been able to get past the intro. And another triple pack here, Prince of Persia Trilogy, contains Prince of Persia, Two Souls, Warrior Within, or is it Two Thrones, sorry, Warrior Within and Sands of Time. Sands of Time is the best game there, still holds up today as one of the best games in this series, and I'd play Sands of Time to this day, to be honest with you. Very good game. And this was more what I was expecting from the Rayman. I like that there's 3 individual booklets there, so it's quite an easy way for them to package the games. But it does feel more valuable to me that way. Oni, or Oni, depending on how you want to say it, probably Oni. This is an interesting game. It's made, well, published by Rockstar, but it's actually made by Bungie, or at least the team of Bungie that would go on to be Bungie and make Halo. So quite an interesting game. I believe I'm right in saying that as a big Halo fan. Never really played a huge amount of it because it is quite clunky, especially to today's standards, but it is quite an interesting one to know a little bit about. Essentially, you're this chick who's like really over-the-top action, anime type adventure, beat 'em up, go around with all these different body moves and combos and stuff, and obviously guns. Mission Impossible Operation Sumra, or Sumra. Don't know anything about this. I probably picked it up because it was cheap, and you know, Mission Impossible is pretty cool, isn't it? But I might never have even played it, to be honest with you. Another one for kids here, but it's actually one I really like. SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, much better than Battle for Bikini Bottom. If you ask me, it came out after and it was a lot of copy and paste, but because it followed that movie storyline, I thought it was much better because I had to watch the movie a dozen thousand times with my child, so do recommend it. This one here, a huge missed opportunity. Space Race is all it's called. It should have been called Looney Tunes Space Race because that is effectively what the game is. And it's Mario Kart, but in space with the Looney Tune characters. Just doesn't play as good. The visuals still hold up today because it's that cel-shaded type graphics, which I really love. But the gameplay is just a little bit lacking and not very well balanced. Two strange games here. They are very different from each other. Space Invaders Anniversary and Invasion Day. Anniversary is your traditional type Space Invaders with some nice fancy graphics on some of the extra game modes. You could play it in an arcade cabinet back in the day. You can walk around an arcade. Kind of had that retro feel before retro was a huge deal. Whereas Invasion Day is more, I don't know, it's a very weird one. It's very, actually a lot of people say it's really good. To me, it just takes ages to get through around, so I don't particularly like it. It is still Space Invaders, but it's in your 3D environment. The aliens have actually come and invaded Earth and you're trying to battle them off. It's kind of got a weird story mode that works, but I don't know, a lot of people like it. I think it's too tedious. Sonic Gems Collection, actually a really good collection of the old Sonic games. So you have got 9 titles here. They're not very well presented, but you've got all the standard Sonic 1, 2, 3, I believe. As well as Sonic CD and the Game Gear games, as well as Sonic Fighters and Sonic R, as well as 6 Game Gear classics here. And there's a bunch of unlockables. It's the first time they really packaged together those Sonic games for modern consoles at the time. Smash Court Pro Tournament Tennis 2. I've said that the wrong way, but those were all the right words. Actually a really good arcade game. It's not quite Virtua Tennis, but it is slightly better than the early Virtua Tennis games. But, you know, it's tennis. Here's a very, very underrated game. Sled Storm, made on that EA Big franchise title that they put out a lot of arcadey type environment games. Not very well showing you what's going on here. Obviously it is sled racing, but the graphics are really good, the music's really good, and the gameplay is hardcore arcade racing. It's actually a sequel or a remake, actually, before remakes were a big deal, of a PlayStation 1 game which was also really good, but this game's actually probably a little bit better. Silent Hill Origins. I never played this one either. I picked it up because I quite like Silent Hill, at least in terms of the idea of Silent Hill, but sometimes the gameplays let the games down. And Origins, I think, is probably one a bit like that, just based on reviews. And I should go back and play it, though, because I'm quite interested in the franchise at the moment. Here's a game that is much more widely known, and it is the kind of special 2-disc set here. Silent Hill 2, of course. Just been recently remade or remastered and is very well regarded as one of the best games in not only Silent Hill but in that horror type game genre. Cool making of disc as well as the disc, and I assume some kind of nice little, no, it's probably just the standard instruction book actually, but it's a nice little box set. Here is another nice little box set. It's Shadow of the Colossus. Mentioned it earlier. It is the much better game out of this and Ioko, and I really like this. It's essentially boss rush mode, but you have to go and find the bosses and then figure out how to beat them. And they're huge monoliths, as you can see from this awesome picture here. You probably know a lot about Shadow of the Colossus already. It's been remade, remastered. And it is one of the best games on the PS2 and probably of modern times. It's really influenced a lot of other games more recently, and this is a really nice collector's edition to have of it with some art cards there in the nice cardboard box. I really do like this game, but I've never completed it actually. I've probably beat, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe even 8 bosses, but never got all the way through. The ending spoiled to me, and that takes a lot away from it. This game, again, really overlooked because it's a cartoon-based environment, but Night of 100 Frights for Scooby-Doo, actually a really good action-adventure 3D platforming game. Go and play this if you're into platforming games, because it is a little bit basic, but the way you get through different parts of the level unlock different sort of avenues, and it's worth playing. Scarface, The World Is Yours, obviously based on the movie. It's actually very interesting because it's a kind of retake on what would happen after the movie ended if Tony Montana didn't die and you had to start from scratch again. Really good game. I don't know if this is well regarded or not, but it should be. Kind of a lot of people look at it as a GTA clone, and it really isn't. Operation Winback, again, a game that is a remaster or a remake of a game on the N64, actually. Before a lot of that happened, it seems to happen now every day. You get a new remake or remaster. This was back in the time when that didn't happen a lot, but this is a really good game, and it's actually much better than the N64 version, so I do recommend it. It's a over-the-top shoulder shooting game, but a really cool story and a lot of nice guns and good visuals. Go and play it. Red Dead Revolver, a game a lot of people forget was actually in the Red Dead series by Rockstar before Red Dead 1 came out. It's kind of way before that. I think they actually bought the game that was unfinished on from a different publisher, different developer, and then they finished it off and got it out. It's a good game. I played it recently, halfway through. It's obviously not as good as Red Dead 1 or 2, though. Red Faction, interesting game. It was kind of... because it's based in Mars, a lot of people thought it was going to be Doom, but it definitely isn't. It's its own thing. It was one of the first games that had this geomod technology, which was basically saying you could blow up any part of the environment, and it would create unstable grounds, and you could go anywhere through mining and stuff. And that wasn't really the case. That was just tech talk, and never really came to fruition through this game. But it is still a good game. Okay, 1/3 left, and we will start again with a double header. Hitman 2 and Hitman Contracts. Not sure where the first game's gone, but I guess I haven't got it anymore. Contracts probably better, but they're both pretty much the same. Hitman, you know what you're doing with Hitman. Everybody knows Hitman. Go sneaky, go guns a-blazing, do your target in different ways. It's really cool. Guncom 2, again, it's one of those light gun games. I haven't got a huge amount to say about it. Other than that, it looks pretty cool. Fighting monster robots and legions of undead and even samurais. Seems pretty cool to me, but I just never really played it. Sega's Headhunter here. Again, it's interesting because this is another remaster, so to speak. It came out on the Dreamcast first, and it was fairly popular and well received. There is a Headhunter 2 that wasn't. Came out after this, but this game actually I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit clunky in times. The story is really good and the action is pretty decent, even with the clunkiness. It has an open world type of elements to it where you ride around getting to different objectives. Quite a good little game. I talked to these back to back because I don't need to say much about them. GTA 3 and Vice City, two of the best games on the system, and kickstarted the real franchise after 1 and 2 on the PS1 were middling in popularity. This game's really blew up. I did used to have San Andreas, and that is a good thing to say, actually. I used to have all these games, and then I sold them and traded them for an Xbox way back when Xbox was new. So I've had to go back and rebuy all these games. Most of them I did have, some of them are new to the collection. Vice City, probably my favourite game on the whole system. Another double header here, Getaway and Getaway Black Monday. Never played Black Monday. Getaway, really fun game. I go back to this all the time. It still plays well, even though it is still quite clunky. It was, again, a GTA clone that actually isn't. Really interesting story. They took a scan of London and literally remodeled it. Everything from dimensions of how wide the roads are compared to the cars and the shop. Some certain shop fronts are accurate. It was an early game that you could play on widescreen as well. Really good game. It's just a shame it didn't really reach the levels of popularity, at least the sequel, to get another game, because, and I'm bad for this because I never played it, but I wish more people did, because I'd love that system, that franchise to carry on. Another double header here. We've got Simpsons the game, Hit and Run. Obviously, Hit and Run came out first. I think the game is actually much better, but everyone loves Hit and Run. Again, a GTA clone, although it isn't really. I don't need to say too much about these, but if you haven't played the game, I would definitely recommend it, especially on the 360. Another game that I really like the idea of, I just could never get that far through, even back in the day. The Operative, No One Lives Forever. It was really a PC game that got ported to the PS2, and as such isn't that well done, but is actually still pretty good. Really interesting that you play as a female spy, basically, and you're James Bond. That is effectively it. But it's got some really interesting comedy in there, and yeah, it's probably I might go back and try and play it again. Getting closer to the end of the list, and this one is The Incredibles. Not going to say too much about it. This one does follow the movie. It's a movie tie-in game. It's what you would expect. It's better, probably slightly better than you'd expect. The Godfather, again, a movie tie-in game, but came out way after. Very popular, very well received. I think they should remake this one, remaster it, because it deserves that, actually, because it's so well done. Actually, they went on and did The Godfather 2, which was awful, so... actually go and do 1, 2, and 3 as a triple edition would be quite good if you did them properly. Anyway, Vampire Knight here, another light gun game. Looks really good, but I don't know anything about it. Ultimate Spider-Man, pretty decent kids, superhero. I shouldn't say kids because superheroes aren't anymore. But this one is good and does stand the test of time because the visuals are shell-shaded again and pretty interesting. In fact, I kind of want to play it. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. 2 is my favourite. 1 is probably my favourite out of the whole franchise, but 2 is my favourite out of these two for sure, which is strange because most people say 3. I'm really looking forward to the Delta remake, remaster, I don't know how you want to say that. I could talk about these games forever. They literally change gaming. Along with the first one, but I won't go into too much depth because I have been speaking for 45 minutes already. But yeah, just if you're on the edge about playing these, definitely go and play them. Definitely get Delta when it comes out. I really want more Metal Gear Solid games because we haven't had anything for so long. Mercenaries, really interesting game here. It's just weird. There was a sequel. My mouth's getting dry. That was then published by EA, I believe. So LucasArts did this original one, Pandemic, who went on to make, I can't remember, a PS3 franchise that was Sony backed and was really good. And this game is really good. You basically go around blowing up different areas, being mercenaries, fighting for good or fighting for bad, I believe. Quite interesting. You could a lot of vehicle combat as well. I played the sequel a lot more than this one, but this was good. Maximo, interesting little title here. I think there were a couple of these games. I've only got this one, and it was based off of oh no, my mind's gone blank on that as well. Ghosts and Goblins. So you're basically that guy, but in a third-person action-adventure game. Really good fun. It got quite hard, but only because if you died, you'd often lose all your progress in the level, have to go way back to the start, and it kind of then was a bit tedious. But I do recommend you trying this, or at least its sequel, which was still on the PS2, if you are interested in a little fun spin-off game. Need for Speed Underground 2, all-time classic arcade racing game. Not going to speak about it too much. I believe, or I know that the Need for Speed series went on to bigger things on the PS3 and more realistically the Xbox 360. This was an awesome game back in the day. Another couple of NFL games, and again, I know you'd think, why would you buy these in this day and age? Because as I said, I had to rebuy my collection, but I did that because I probably sank as many hours as I spent on Metal Gear Solid 2. Probably did double that on Madden 2003, and almost that on 05, but probably played 2K5 a lot more. Really love these games. They still play well today, especially with the tripe that we get on modern systems. Really, one cool thing about this one, I remember you used to be able to actually make your own plays, which I don't think you can even do anymore and haven't been able to do for a long time. And I always just liked making different routes and then you can watch them play out. Yeah, it's just a shame where we ended up to with the Madden license. Just Cause, another game that's went on to, I think there's 5 or 6 of these now. Pretty good game, but this kind of started it all. It's a really cool open world game now. Can't really remember how open world this was, but it's obviously good enough to spawn that type of series. Legacy of Khan Defiance. Don't know anything about this one. Obviously, Legacy of Khan is a big series these days, but I don't know. It kind of looks like God of War type combat there. I think there were other games where it's a bit more zoomed out. In fact, this one I think may have been the 3rd game in the series of Legacy. I don't know. There we go. Jak and Daxter, the precursor Legacy. So I don't know which number this is in the series. Might have been the first one, I would guess. And this is the Platinum Edition. Really good game, as I mentioned when we were talking about Jak 2. I played this quite a bit, actually. Actually, it's kind of like, it almost felt like Mario 64, but with nuts and bolts on it and a lot smoother. Which is a weird thing to say. I know it's nothing like Mario. And then we have a quad piece. I was waiting. There is actually obviously 5 games because we've already covered one. We will talk about this one independently first, Everything and Nothing, just because this came out before with Russia from Love that we already spoke about, and it's its own kind of movie basically. It's obviously a game, but it was its own storyline that is not seen in any books or movies, and because of that it works really well. It was one of the first times that the third person view worked much better. I know there was another game that came out before it on the PlayStation and N64 that was third person, but this one just really worked really well. All the action, the atmosphere, the story, the combat, it's all really good. Definitely recommend this if you haven't played any other 007 games. But what you probably have played is one of these two, probably Nightfire, but I believe Agent Underfire came out before that, and they're both really good games. More traditional FPS, following that GoldenEye type vibe. Multiplayer, again, really important in GoldenEye, in 007 games, and works really well here. Nightfire probably better because they had a lot of time to kind of progress with things, and the story again is really good. Again, both unique from the movies, but really well voice acted, and the action is amazing. And then that leaves us off with the last one, which is GoldenEye Rogue Agent. I think, don't know when this one came out. Actually, I think it was after those other two games, and wasn't that popular because they tried to take GoldenEye and do a sequel of GoldenEye, and no one really cared. Everyone just wanted a re-release of GoldenEye if you're going to do that. Anyway, that is my whole collection. Tried to do that in under an hour, and I definitely have succeeded, because editing this together will take me probably a couple of hours, especially if I put in much game footage. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I know I've gone through it quite rapid fire, but with that many games you have to. And if you did, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. I know it's a little bit wobbly here because of how I got my camera set up, which is quite annoying. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Should have said that at the start. Catch you in the next one.